Good evening. This is Spirit Journey, and what a nice, quiet evening. Yeah, I do have the air conditioning going on. You may hear that noise. And my dogs are panting right now. It was a very, very hot day, and I had a really great shower, a nice hot shower. I was feeling very sticky after going outside. I want to talk to you about I would say the theme about this topic is about women, women in general, women all over the world. And I would say, in a nutshell, with everything, that I realized how fortunate I am. I see that there are so many people in this planet who are suffering, especially women and children. And I mentioned in the last video, prior video, that about the illusion, and that you thought the grass was greener in someone else's yard. And you fail to realize the blessing and the greenery that your lawn possesses. So I want to share some stories that I heard about, over the internet. And there are several stories. The first story I watched today, it was about the Middle East. And I was really surprised. Well, maybe not that surprised, but it is what it is. Again, this is the Middle East. A man and woman marries, and when she took off her veil, I presume this was an arranged marriage, because he never seen her, her face. And he divorces her on the spot. She still has her wedding clothes on, and upon her removing the veil, he says, "I want a divorce, you're not what I want." And they mentioned some other stories about the Middle East and how the women are, how they're treated. And they have to go back home, So you start to wonder, in a system like that, when a man could, a man and woman could be in an arranged marriage, and he could just say, I don't want her. To put couples, in that position, especially the woman, she was devastated. And I think they said she had to be carried home because she got so hysterical and everything. I mean, just imagine how it would affect her self-esteem, I think it adds pressure. I mean, I guess every society is different, and if people know what's expected out of them, whether they're courting or an arranged marriage, they really should. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like when you go into the store, you want to make sure you get something that you want. You don't want to have to return it. You want to get what you want. It should be open. But I guess marriages like that developed over the years, and I don't know. I think a lot of these things are really in the benefit of the guy. And that's a lot of the things I'm going to mention is really about that, about how a lot of relationships, especially in traditional societies, that it's a game that's really stacked in the favor of the guy. And I really feel sorry for the woman. I next watched a film about domestic work in the Middle East, okay? And my heart goes out to these ladies. They showed, like, it seems that they get most of the women from either Asia or Africa. And in this particular country in the Middle East, the two primary groups of women that they get are Ethiopians and Filipino people. They get the women to do the domestic work. And in their country, what I'm angry about is the deception on both countries. And the women are in the middle. And I feel that the countries that these women come from they're being pimped by their government or so-called employment agencies in their respective countries. The women are told that they're going to work in a hotel. And then when they get there, it's somebody's house. So, that's a difference. One thing, you're working in an establishment, you'll be with other people, but it's not. And they do atrocities to these women. They showed a clip of a woman. Either she was fleeing or she was committing suicide. She was on the balcony and she jumped. She was holding on, and then she fell to her death. They show more than one clip of someone running out of the building, the apartment, and jumping to her death. They had this one woman that, for punishment, I think some of these people invent evil to do against women. She was from Sri Lanka, and the guy that she's doing domestic work for took nails and a hammer and rammed in multiple nails in her body. They took x-rays, you could see a nail. I wonder where these people in the Middle East, how they become sadistic. It's like, see, some things could work. Okay, you're busy at home, you're busy at work, and you want someone to do some cooking, some cleaning, whatever. It's a business, and you're a professional, whether you're a professional cleaner, and then you have the customer. But it seems like my impression is that these are the so-called nouveau rich, or people who think they're rich, and it goes to their head, and they don't respect labor. And I would imagine that because of their disrespect for the person that's helping them. And so it makes me think that maybe that's how they were treated. And they're doing what they're doing upon this person because that's where they were. We don't respect labor. You want the help, and then you want to mistreat someone. And then the money. There's also a lot of racism in the Middle East. They paid the agent. Okay, I think what they meant to say was that the agency, or the so-called broker, they get $5,000 for each Filipino that they send out. So the client, I guess, has to give them $5,000 for the Filipino. For the Ethiopian, only $1,500. So here you're going to be doing the same work, but that's a big difference. But see, the Philippines has very close relationship historically with the U.S. So they're more Europeanized slash Americanized, um, and they're a little lighter in color than the Ethiopian. Ethiopia was not a part of the U.S., no relations. So they're given less money. It's like you give them so little money. Oh, okay, so that's the agency. But I think they get like $100, $100 something. The women, they didn't specify. At least I don't remember whether that's for the 2 years. They get only $100 something. Yeah, it's like a 2-year contract. Either way, the amount of money that they're getting, and then they may not get paid. So here they make an agreement. They have the agency. See, the agency gets paid up front, but this worker oftentimes doesn't get paid. No days off. She's often raped. There was a woman who was a housewife. I mean, a wife. This was in Saudi Arabia, and she caught the husband making moves on the domestic. Nasty guy. Nasty. And the woman was like, at first I thought something, like an affair. No, he was abusing the domestic. And she videotaped it, with a smartphone and put it up on air over the internet. And it was found out. Well, Saudi Arabia has this new law that if you videotape someone and air it and defame them, you go into prison, plus $100,000 fine. You heard me right. So here the husband does a no-no. He's not punished, the husband, but he's defamed. He defamed himself with that behavior. But see, it's a male-dominated country, and this is how they really feel about women. So you have the Middle East that has a hatred for its own women, and then they want to they have this new money from the oil industry, and then they bring these domestic workers. They don't need, it's like, I don't think they need, they just want it. And then they abuse these women. They're psychopaths. They're psycho. To just do that. To just brutalize. This is it's abusing women. It's lying to the women to get them there. And it's relying on their poverty in their own countries. And their country is exploiting their own poor women and sending them to the Middle East because it's bringing in money, at least for the agent, but not the women. They said in the Philippines, that the Filipino women that are sent to the Middle East, that one woman a week gets sent home in a body bag. They're dying. They said on average, one woman a week is shipped home or flown back home in the body bag, dead. And it's like, it's no outcry. This is modern day slavery. Because see, the slave did get, in the Americas, the slave did get some things. They got their clothing and some food. But that's it. But that is a type of wage. That's why they call it slave wages. And so these poor women, they're being forced in a situation and exploited by their own countries. And the countries they're being sent to. See that the earth is crying out in pain. The earth is crying out. All this blood is, this loss is happening in this world. But we don't care because we're trapped in a system called money. And I start to think back, where did this money come from? This money system. I doubt 6,000 years ago, people, there weren't banks and, people lived where they lived. They had a dwelling place. They were social. They probably had farms, or they call hunters and gatherers. Life was simple. And they weren't being shipped in other countries. It's just something happened. And it was something that was implemented some time ago. This modern day money system that you're working for a system, a corporation. And it's really our burden. It's our enslavement. This system is a slave system. Then I watched this other video. This was in Romania. Romania is in, I think, South Central Europe. It's right beside Italy, northern Italy. And this one, I think these people were actually gypsies. They have another term for them there in Romania. Excuse me. But in the U.S., they're called gypsies. And, I mean, these people look like Europeans. Basically, they look like regular white people, but they have darker hair and darker eyes. Someone could just say, oh, Italian or something like that, or Greek. And the poverty. It was an eye-opener. I see, again, I have to count my blessings that I'm nowhere near the situation that these people are in. And I notice also that they show mostly women. Any male that they had one male, and I remember one little child was a male. But overwhelmingly, everybody that they showed in this documentary were female. And it was like the first time really seeing whites who are in utmost poverty. Their homes, very dilapidated. One home, it's like something happened up here. And one family, they were suffering from what they call hoarding syndrome. Hoarding, their house was packed with stuff and it was very filthy. They talk about a child that had died of hunger. In America, you really don't see something like this. Not even in the poorest neighborhoods in New York City where I live look like that. It looked really depressing. How they looked unkept. They weren't. One thing I noticed that they weren't clean. A lot of them didn't dress clean. Weren't groomed. You could maybe not have a lot of resources, but you comb your hair, you wash your face, whatever. You keep yourself neat. I knew one girl who lived in her car. And she makes sure she cleans up after herself. She used to, she lived in her car, and sometimes she would like sneak in this abandoned hut or whatever you call it. I think it was really a storage room. And she used to come and sleep in there sometimes, but she would stay in her car usually. And then she'd go to a park and hang out at the park all day. It's like a nature park. and they had benches, picnic area, and she would set up her stuff. And when she leaves, when the park is going to close, she packs up and cleans everything with ammonia. Clean. She kept herself clean. So just because someone might be homeless, be clean. I think a lot of times this homelessness is not just a lack of resources. It's something that they lost something upstairs. They're depressed and they just give up. But seeing her, it was really interesting. You live on the street, but stay clean, stay neat. But yeah, Americans don't realize how lucky they really are. I am so fortunate than most people in this world, and even more fortunate than some white people. It was amazing. A shock, real shock. The poor here have fancy cell phones and fancy handbags. They don't, when you go overseas, a lot of people don't have anything. And a lot of pregnancies. This one real young girl, she was having her fourth baby. Really looked destitute. Really, they were helping her and bringing her to some shelter. The people were doing the documentary. And she kind of looked like she was in shock. Really out of it. She was, what was it? Yeah, I think she was 15. She got 4 kids already. Going on 4, I'm sorry. So, again, women in destitute. And then this leads me to another show I saw. These were fundamentalist Mormons. And when the Mormon organization got started, they had their multiple wives. I think this documentary was made in the 1990s, I think, how they were dressed. One guy, he looked like in his 40s maybe, and he had young wives. Some of the wives were young, and he has 6 wives, and they had like the pictures of all the brides on the wall in order, descending order, and they had a blank frame for the next coming wife, and he can barely they can barely make ends meet where they live. They live out in, it looked like a desert where they lived, and they lived in one of those prefabricated, what do you call it? It's made out of metal. I forget like a trailer. And it had a bunch of them, I think about 4 of them. And it looks like squalor. I mean, the kids were dressed. I noticed the women often were barefooted, but the sons had shoes, So I thought that was different. But, the hair was, combed and everything. They were groomed, but they would go barefoot a lot outside. But the males seemed to wear shoes. And the mindset of the women, it was all about, like the interviewer was asking about, that he might get another wife, and they said, well, if it makes him happy, things like that. And I feel that it's exploiting the ladies. It's a religion that, like a lot of religions, it doesn't put the woman, it puts the woman in a haphazard position. She's often very young. and the guy much older. On one level, okay, if he's much older, he's probably more established and he could afford a wife. Well, you get 6 wives. How are you going to afford it? Well, I tell you how it's done, I heard. Like, you legally can only have one wife in the United States, but the other wives, they go get public assistance. That's how they do it. And even in New York City, you have other Orthodox groups in New York City, not Mormons, but another different group, and they also use the public assistance to pay for their children. So I just feel that it's putting them at a disadvantage. The education of these ladies, they might be intelligent, but do they have knowledge that if something were to happen to the husband, how they're going to take care of themselves and the children? And it just didn't seem, I mean, they seemed okay, but it just, they're out in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know. It's keeping them locked in there. And then the guy is able to just do his thing, just go and do, he has that social mobility to go here or there. He can drive, he's socially mobile, but the women there, the young women there, have to take care of all these kids. And I feel it's like a prison for these ladies. But it's a system that it's the only system that they know. One of the relationships with this Mormon family, it was a mother-daughter situation. Now he's married to 6 women, but 2 of these women is a mother-daughter, and they both gave birth the same day. Now, mother-daughter, now the babies of each of those women will be siblings. They'll be half siblings to each other, plus the mother and the daughter's baby would be grandmother. It's weird. I think it's tacky. The man married the young girl first, the daughter, and then at a later marriage marries the girl's mother. I think it doesn't sit well with me. I think it's pathetic. But again, you get trapped. And I really start to think, what made this world like this? What made this world to set up a system that doesn't really benefit the woman? It's made with the man in mind, not the woman. I mentioned this in another video. I'm really starting to think this is the case. Now you see, like, okay, you can have different ethnic groups or different so-called races, and then the squabble that could happen between groups, or let's say political parties that are different from each other, and the squabble with that. Well, I think the man and the woman are from different worlds. And there used to be a book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Well, I'm thinking that this system was created by design. It took everything in account, and it took in account the difference between men and women, and put a distinction between the two that's going to benefit the man. I don't think that the man and woman so-called evolved together. I think the man and the woman were evolved in different environments, maybe even different worlds, and were brought here. And with that distinction, the system had it so that the man has it over the woman, and is causing this static, this friction. This whole world system seems to be a system that is to create the maximum friction, tension, dis-ease amongst us. That's why all this variability was created to cause this friction. So it's really weird. And I think we're all being exploited. And then you look at this planet, it's a beautiful planet. But it seems like each society has its stresses, its strife. This is a prison planet. That's what all this means, I think. It's a prison planet. They're mentioning in another video about this whole system, this world system, and that you have like a covering over this planet, and that you really cannot leave it because it's this radiation. So think of that as an electrical fence. You can't get out, and and also you can't get in either. So you're stuck here. So people really can't get in, and you can't get out. And it's like, wow. I mean, I don't know whether this is true, but it's like an electrical fence, and it's like we're stuck here. And he wants to keep it just the way it is, and exploiting the people here. You know, even in the Bible, even though I don't follow the Bible anymore, but some of the things it mentions, like our food. At one point, the Bible talks about that we were just eating, vegetation, and then later eating meat was incorporated. So before the fall, eating a plant-based diet, and then with the fall, we're eating each other. We're eating animals. And there's some people that eat other people, or they drink their blood. And it seems like when things get like that, just the mindset of the people, it goes beyond just saying, "Oh, I'm hungry." When you get like that, it's just like in the Middle East. They don't need a maid. It's just something they want, and the perversion that comes with it. I really wish that we have to wake up from this stupor that we're in, how we treat each other. We don't respect each other. And it seems like some groups on this planet are more reprobate. They seem beyond human. They lack conscience. And you can really tell about a nation how it treats its women. And whether you like it or not, even though the US has its shortcomings, but in a nation like the United States or Canada or Western Europe or Northern Europe, whether you like it or not, they treat women a little better than if you go to the Middle East Africa and Asia and parts of the Americas. I how lucky I am to be here. And I used to always wonder what it's like and what it'll be like to be somebody else, to be in another country, thinking that it's greener there. I'm in the meadows right now in comparison. So I think every day I should say, I'm in the meadows, a beautiful meadow. And I pray that the other people out there in this world will one day wake up and be in a beautiful meadow, to live in a beautiful life, and that it be peace, no starving, to just be in bliss. I really would like that for everyone. And I really hope that somehow we can find out who put us here in this prison planet and how to get out and why we're here. I think a lot of these things, like this Mormon church, and a lot of these religions, these big religions, it always, always, always seemed to put women on the bottom. And I don't know how this happened. I know when I was growing up, when I was a little girl, elementary school, the girls were smarter than the guys. They were more developed mentally and physically. But it starts to change when we get into high school, or that sexism starts to develop. And it just continues. And it's like a program that kicks in, and it's holding the women back. And yet I think women are smarter than guys. But of course, you have some brilliant men. You have brilliance of, I don't want to sound sexist, you have brilliance in both gender. I just wish that we respect each other a little more. So I just hope one day that things will get better. I was even thinking about writing a letter to our government about these atrocities that are happening all over the world. It has to stop. It has to stop. So that's all that I have to say right now. And I thank you for listening. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.